Hi there. I am Dr. Loren M. Hill, your academic career advancement coach. And I want to thank you all for tuning in again. And today we have one of my longtime friends and colleague, Dr. Tanika Jackson, joining us today. And Dr. Jackson is currently a department chair and has had a long history in higher ed. And you all know that I'm frequently talking about navigating the sharp corners and edges of higher ed. And Dr. Jackson is going to share her story with us today and what led her to ultimately becoming an administrator and some of the challenges that she is facing in the current climate of higher ed. We're all sort of grappling post-COVID, if you will, with enrollment and meeting student needs and addressing limited resources and budgetary issues and faculty and on and on and on and on. All of those things that you come to find out very intimately when you step into the role of an administrator. But Dr. Jackson does it with grace and ease, and she will share some of the challenges and some of the triumphs. So welcome, Dr. Jackson.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, yes. So let's start with, what brought you to higher ed?
Well, I started in the trenches. I started as an adjunct faculty member and kind of worked my way up. I noticed as I was teaching that the administrators tended to not look like me,
Mm,
right? And
mm,
not look like the students that I was teaching. And so I said, and I've always been the type of person that wanted to bring about change and to improve the environments in the schools that I was in. And so I just kind of kept working, kept, hunkering down. So I went from adjunct to full time to core. And then I became an associate chair at a
mhm.
university and now, chair of the entire department. And it's interesting, when you're, when you're on one side of it, right? When you're on the teaching side, it's very different from when you're on the administrative side. And so I've, um, I've noticed that there is a challenge, and there's still not a lot of people that look like me. In my
Right.
particular institution, I am the only um, full-time chair of the department, and in the school, my program is the largest, right?
Mm,
And so it's been a challenge, but it's been rewarding at the same time. So
mm.
that's kind of my
So
journey.
yeah, so we share sort of a similar pathway in actually similar professions because we're both licensed clinical psychologists, and we
Yes.
both started as adjunct faculty and were kind of shepherded into the academy, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so I totally agree with you that when you're on the faculty side, then you have really your vantage point is your classroom and your students, if you will.
Yeah.
When
Hmm.
you're and I'll back up a little more, is if you're adjunct, right?
Hmm.
And you really are like, I'm coming to campus, be it virtually or
Hmm.
brick and mortar. This is my class, or these are my students, and then I'm out.
Right, right.
And then if you are, if you're core faculty, then you have your office hours, you have, if you're in a graduate program or even, some undergraduate, you have your research lab, those types of commitment.
Hmm.
But then when you move into the chair position, you are now on the administrative side. You may still teach here and there,
Here and
depending,
there. Hmm.
but now you have the department, right? So you have students, you have
Hmm.
faculty, you have who you report
Yeah.
to,
Hmm.
right? And it can be eye-opening.
Oh, yes. There's a lot of balls you're juggling at one time, and everyone wants their needs met, right? So the students don't understand the administrative needs, the staff don't. So you're constantly kind of juggling these balls and making sure that everything kind of stays afloat. And it can be challenging,
Mm.
because you're trying to make sure that you're doing the best thing for all parties involved, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Now, did you have any resources regarding being able to speak with someone who had formerly or is currently a chair to kind of say, hey, Dr. Jackson, look out for this, or be ready
Mm.
for this, or, here's some things that work well in your first year, and here's some things, don't even try to address those.
I would say yes and no. I've had a wonderful mentor who actually is my current associate chair. So she has really helped along the way. She's kind of given me some pointers and tips, but that's career wise overall,
Mm,
right? It would have been really nice to have a chair who, was a chair of color, a woman of color who
mm,
can kind of tell me, hey, this is my experience. This is what happened to me. And I want to encourage you so that this doesn't happen to you as well. And
mhm,
that's what I didn't have. That's what was missing. So the
mm,
person that kind of, the woman that had the position before me, she, kind of told me how it was for her over the years and what to expect. But I believe her experience is very different from mine. It's just, it's a different, I don't know how to say it. She navigated this position in a different way because she's not a woman of color.
right. And so I just love how tactfully you put that, Doctor. That's one of the things that I so admire about you. I need to maybe think more about that. Right. And so I totally I resonate with your situation 100%, and would say that, you know, even the fact that you had someone who was a woman and who could share their experiences, albeit they're a bit different.
Hmm.
I know that in my situation and many others, there's nobody, right? Because either
Mm,
the position is vacant, or the person has like moved on begrudgingly, or you're kind of
mm,
brought in to clean the mess up. So people withhold information from
yeah.
you. And it is not always a smooth transition
Hmm.
into the slot, if you will. Um,
Yes.
so I totally understand what it's like, going in with some support and with no support.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It can be challenging.
And so when we think about, like, yay, you're a department chair, and great, congratulations. Because we have some listeners who are thinking about becoming an administrator or a chair. And then we have people who are already in those positions. So,
Hmm.
as we kind of consider that, what would you say to somebody who's thinking about, maybe I want to go into administration, maybe I want to become a chair? What would you say?
Hmm. Well, a couple of things. One, I would say use that platform. If that's what you want to do. Use that platform to bring about change, right? If you're noticing that the students are of the same ethnicity in all of your classes, maybe you would do more in the admissions department so that you can
Mhm.
market to other groups of people, right? If you see that they're not really bringing certain speakers or not having certain activities on campus, you can make those suggestions because now you are in charge of those decisions and that budget. And so you can say, hey, we're going to do a speaker series on this, or we're going to bring this particular speaker to campus because they're doing such great work in the community, and this will benefit our students, right? So use that platform to bring about change and to help your students. I would say
I
that.
love that. I love
Mm-hmm.
that. And it is definitely something that someone can do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's sometimes budget neutral. And then
Yeah.
said, because when you're administrator, you become a budget owner. So
Mm-hmm.
you may be able to find, a few dollars here or there
Mm-hmm.
to provide an honorarium. And another thing that you could consider building on your recommendation around that, something that I was able to do was partner with some other departments to
Mm-hmm.
share that line item and then make the honorarium a bit larger, particularly when you want someone who costs X and you don't really have that money unto yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
this is
Very true.
great stuff. This is great stuff. The other thing that I want to remind people about is that yes, you are now in a position to bring about change on a different scale, right? Because now
Mm-hmm.
you're the department manager, and this also looks good for you as you are moving your career forward. So
Yeah.
now in the institution, your visibility is increased because what you're bringing up enrollment, you're bringing in
Mm-hmm.
diversity. And I don't know, a school here in the US who doesn't have in some form or another diversity in their mission or strat plan, even if they're not doing it all that well, but that's another show.
Right, right.
You can look, I have a strategy on connecting with the local group XYZ, right, and bringing them onto the campus. So that is an awesome strategy, as well as, wow, if you bring in XYZ person who
Mm-hmm.
everybody else has been trying to get, but because your university and your department is really in line with that individual's philosophies, then
Mm-hmm.
hey, come on over here to my college because we
Yeah.
are all team blah blah blah, right? And
Right, right.
I was just looking for that. So
Mm-hmm.
this strategy helps you, helps the institution, helps the students. There's multiple boxes that this would check off. So thank you for that, in terms of, what you can do in using this platform to increase diversity and, a few other things. So
Absolutely.
now, do you have any designs on promoting any further? Are we thinking about, Dean Jackson or Provost or President Jackson? How do we get our campaign together for you?
Oh, that would be amazing. I'm always trying to grow. I feel like as long as I'm alive, I'm going to keep learning new things and keep growing. And so I would like to promote. I would like to see um, higher management positions, because the higher you go in the institution, of course, the more change you can enact, right? So, it would be nice to be president of the university. One thing that's happening now, of course, we always have budget challenges, but there are so many ideas that we have, and they kind of sometimes they, get stopped when they get to the dean and the provost level, because they say, oh, well, we don't have the money for that, or and so that's a challenge. So if I were
Mm,
in those positions, maybe we would do a little things differently. We would work on endowment, we would work on annual
mm,
giving, we would we work on something that would ensure that we could do the programming that we need,
mhm.
right? So I would love to see that in my my next career, the next level of my career.
So one thing that I have tuned into in this conversation for sure is that you are all about the money. You talking about resources, endowments, and that is something that people should probably be thinking about
Yes,
very seriously when you
yes.
are considering administrative appointments, even starting with a program manager or department chair, want to be finding the money, right?
Yeah, you need to, because you cannot run the program successfully without it, right? So you want to make sure that you're compensated for the work you're doing, and you want
Oh,
to make sure
wait,
that there's
so wait. Say that again. We're not getting ready to wait. Say that again. I need you to lean into the mic and say what?
You have to make sure you are compensated for the work
Come
you are
on.
doing. You
Come
cannot
on.
just go in there running these wonderful, robust programs and then, oh, we don't have any money for your salary. You know, you're doing this out of the goodness of your heart. No, I'm not. I do my philanthropic work on the side. I am doing this as my career, and I'm going to be paid for it. You need to.
So here we go. Not only are we thinking about the money and resources for the department and the institution, we're thinking about the money and resources for us. So let's spend a little time there, Dr. Jackson.
Okay.
As you know, I get my church fan out, we about to preach. So when we talk about compensation, we know that sometimes can be a challenging conversation to have, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so the challenges could stem from some of us who were culturally raised, we don't talk about money, right?
Right.
Then there could be some things that are really just like institutional practices where
Mhm.
have gender discrepancies around salaries. And
Yes.
you and I were at a former institution
Mhm.
where fortunately someone said, well, we need to do like a salary equity study because it
Mhm.
seems as though there's some unevenness going on here. And
Yes.
I was shocked that the institution was like, okay, sure. Because usually they're like, man, well, we don't, I don't know about
Mm.
that. And then I think had they had an idea about how it was going to show how uneven it was, they would have never,
They would
right?
not have done it at all.
And so then they had to do some corrections, right? It
Yeah.
didn't happen overnight, and people still felt that there was some unfairness, but I was like, at least it's a step in the right direction. So when I'm working with people, and I'd love to hear your take on this, I say, let's talk about the money before you even get there, right?
Yeah.
When you're in your contract negotiations, and somebody told me a long time, it's always up for negotiation. Doesn't
Yes.
mean that you're going to get what you want, but you don't have to take the first
Right.
offering, right? Now, if you do, then they'll be probably fine with it because it's typically a bit on the lower end. Has that been your experience?
That is definitely my experience. So I agree with you. Do not take the first offer. Look at your budget, look at your career, your education level, and you decide how much you are going to take for that position before you even walk into the interview. So you're ready and you're not caught off guard when they offer you that number, right? Because sometimes people say, oh, and then you start thinking, oh, maybe that's what the budget is. And they get, and so you don't, oh, I don't want to lose this position. This is a wonderful position. But you have to be ready, to advocate for yourself because their purpose is to advocate for the institution.
Right.
Right. So you need to go in there and advocate for yourself. So yes, I agree. Have your number ready before you go in there. And it's okay to ask. They can say no,
Sure.
but they may not.
That's right. That's right. And one of the other things that I learned years ago, because it's almost like a secret, right? Like, how do you do this? What are you supposed to ask for? How are these packages put together? And so you can do your now, because you can find just about everything by doing some homework. You can find ranges, right?
Right.
And do comparison studies like, okay, I'm at this type of institution, and here are the ranges for people who are in this position, even down to like, the year, like, how many years you've been in the field versus
Right.
this, that, or the other. You could do gender. There's a lot of data out there. And the thing that was interesting to me is that maybe you have your number, right? But there's also the fringe benefits, right?
Right.
Like now you could advocate, they're like, nah, we can't meet you with that number. But you're like, okay, well, maybe you can't, but how about I have a flex schedule, right? I come into the office this many days, or I'm able to do this remotely.
Right.
And what are the benefits package looks like, because there can be some room for negotiation on that side, because
Absolutely.
perhaps the budget really is firm, right? Maybe they are doing the best they can with the cash in your pocket, but then
Right.
where are the other areas that are open for negotiation? And then being okay with saying no.
Right. Absolutely. Because just like this opportunity came, another one will come, and you never know where you're supposed to be at that particular time and what you're going to be offered in the future. So don't
Right.
sell yourself short and say, oh, this is all I can get, when you already know that's beneath your worth. Right. But
Yeah.
going back to what you said about the benefits, that's important, because there are institutions that will pay for your research interests. There are institutions that will give you a higher retirement plan, and they'll do more matching and things like that. So there are other perks that you can get. They'll pay for your license renewal. They'll pay, all kinds of things. And so you don't want to just say, okay, well, it's just the salary, because it's never really just the salary. Healthcare alone is a perk, right?
Right.
If they say they're gonna pay for all healthcare for you, your family,
that's right. Sign me up right now. Where is
right,
it?
right,
If you have anything else to say, send straight to HR. Give me my office key, my badge, and my laptop. Right.
Exactly. And that's another thing. They pay for all of your technology, all your books. I don't know about you, but I have a very large book budget.
Yeah.
So if the institution is willing to pay for my books, that's amazing, because I spend a lot of money on books every year. I really should have some type of stake in Amazon, because I spend a lot of money on books. So yeah, so you have to look at everything. You cannot just look at the salary. You're absolutely right.
Yes, yes. And I do think that, sometimes we don't know that these are negotiable things. And I work with people, and I ask them, when they want to work with me, and they're like, well, I don't really have it all. And I'm like, well, what about your professional development funds, right? Because maybe we can have the institution pay for part of this, and you essentially split the cost. You come out of pocket for this, and the institution. And so some professional development, I'm surprised to say, or it always surprises me when people are like, I didn't use my professional development. I'm like, wait, what? And when I was a chair, I would say to everybody, hey, use this for something. Go to a conference, join a APA or whatever, right? Join something, an association, because you can get reimbursed for that. And there's a lot of added benefit around that. So
absolutely.
So we got it. We about the money, we about the resources, we're about all of that. And we know that you have your sights set for that real corner office up there at the campus.
right, exactly.
And that is really amazing, because it can be a challenge to get there. Like you said, still today, the numbers show that there fewer women in those positions, even fewer women who have some melanin in their skin. And we could go like down the list of the demographics of like, wait, what's going on here? And there are some encouraging things that are going on, but then there are some times where you go, wow, this is really rough. And
Yeah.
I want to address like some of the things that have happened in recent history where we've seen some of our colleagues,
Yeah.
fall,
Mhm.
health-wise. We have one that many of us are very aware of who died by suicide because of what
Yeah.
she was experiencing. And then we have some people who are essentially pushed out of their positions. And
Yes.
so in, times like these or those, if someone is experiencing something where it's like, I just can't take this anymore. I'm going to pivot out. What
Mhm.
would you say to that person?
I would definitely encourage them to hold on. A lot of times we feel like we are alone, right? In these positions, it feels lonely sometimes because we're in environments where people don't look like us,
Right.
right? And so we have to, code switch, if you will, or,
Mhm,
we have to
mhm.
do what we need to do to maintain that position. And it could be very lonely and just, it could be traumatic at times. You're constantly fighting, you're constantly bringing things to people's awareness. So they're not making, comments they're not supposed to make or doing
Yeah.
microaggressions. It can be draining. And
Mhm,
so I would encourage that person to take care of themselves,
mm,
right? We have to have our village. We have to have people who look like us, people who share
yeah,
our experiences, people who can support us and love on us. We have to have that, right? And then whatever it is that relieves our stress, if that's getting a massage or
yes,
reading a book or walking on
right,
the beach, whatever it is, that's a healthy outlet for you. I say do that. Make sure you make time for that because that's what I've seen with colleagues. Talking to colleagues, they'll say, "Oh, I don't have time for myself anymore. Or, I don't have time. I used to
mhm,
love to do X, Y, and Z, and I don't do that anymore because it's just so much stress." But
right,
yet they're not doing things that they to relieve the stress. So I have
mhm,
to remind them, just like you scheduled in those meetings with faculty and staff, schedule in your time for yourself, right? That's that
yeah.
me time.
Yes,
It's
yes.
important.
And that is so, um, so practical and so basic, but so many of us struggle with that. And,
Yeah.
hey, if you at some point in your life, you may have had time for that, right? But then
Right.
bring on the kids, bring on the
Mm.
spouse, bring on the life, bring on the this, and then it just your time seems to be like encroached upon so much that you're like, where do I? And I remember I was at a conclave several years ago, and
Mhm.
the person said, we always hear find time for, this, that, and the other. And they said, I want to encourage you to think differently about that and not find time because you probably won't ever find it. Make
Mm.
time. So
Hmm. Big
just as
difference.
you said, just like you scheduled that meeting, let's schedule in something, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes that can be a walk on the beach or a massage, but sometimes it could be just a 5 minute headspace break, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
several apps that are out now that can, assist you with that. You could even just put a timer on in
Hmm.
your calendar to say, oop, this is like nobody, don't look at me, don't talk to me, don't anything right now, because this is my me time. So
Right.
those are really, really helpful recommendations. And as we kind of come to the close of this great conversation,
Hmm.
I'm wondering if there are maybe, in addition to the great things that you've already said, can we get two more tips from you about, how to think about your academic career advancement for those who are listening? What could they sort of incorporate post haste.
Absolutely. I would say seek out other professionals in the field who can offer mentorship and advice and guidance, giving some of their experiences. It just goes a long way to be able to talk to someone who's kind of already walked that path.
Mm,
So seek those people out because you're not always going to find them in your institution. You may have to kind of reach out to another institution or to, you may go to an APA conference and talk to somebody in the conference who's also an
mm,
administrator at a university. So seek those people out. So that would be one thing I would say. I would also say continue to grow.
mm,
Continue to grow. If that's reading, if that's taking a class, if that is doing a CU about, college administration or graduate school, seek it out because you need to continue to develop,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
So, you may be in this position now, but there could be another position coming available next week or next month
mhm,
or next year. And you have to position yourself to be ready for that, right?
mhm.
Because you want to continue to grow and you want to continue to bring about change. We need more of us in these positions of higher ed. We
Yes.
have to be able to be at the table so that we can say, hey, this is what I'm seeing with our students. This would help our students of color. This is a program that I'm suggesting based on the fact that I've seen this success with our students. So they need us. They need
Mm,
us there. They need our voice. So
mm.
I would say, even though it can be challenging, it could be, tiring and all of those things, it's also very rewarding because you are definitely making the difference.
Yes, and I know you, and I know you continue to make the difference. And
Thank you.
as you continue to position yourself for president of the institution, you know me, I'm all about writing that check for supporting campaign funds.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I will be there to celebrate your, installation to those positions with my pom poms and ready to hand you a glass of champagne.
Thank you. I'm gonna hold you to
Oh, thank you
it.
so much, Dr. Jackson. And thank you all for spending some time with us today. And once again, I am Dr. 𝗲𝗏 𝗵𝗶𝗽, your academic career advancement coach. And thank you for joining us. Oh, be sure to like, share, and all those great things that we do when we're supporting people's social media. So thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Jackson.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure. Thank you.